All right, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Uncovering Unexplained Mysteries podcast for Wednesday, November 23rd, a day before Thanksgiving. I am Josh Cannon. I'm here with Mike. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great, actually. I finally got a new mic, and it's something I'm still getting used to because I have to hear the audio from my computer through my microphone. So I have this sort of latency issue, according to Josh here, the music guru.
Yes. So yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in yet again. If you want to become a fan of us on Facebook, it's facebook.com/uncovering unexplained mysteries. And if you want to donate to our Patreon, it's patreon.com/uncovering unexplained mysteries. And there's also a bunch of bonus content on there. You'll get an extra segment from time to time. I'll read your own unique story on our podcast, etc., etc. As far as the news of the show and everything like that, everything's been quiet on the John and Terry legal front. I have not heard anything from them. I'm guessing me sending them that email to their lawyer saying, okay, look, buddy, we've changed the name, we've changed the music, we've changed everything, and actually having a phone conversation with that guy, I'm guessing that was enough to pacify them and get them off my back. I'm hoping it is. So I'm still waiting on the iTunes cover art to change on the iTunes store, but I mean that's on Apple's end because I've done everything on my end to change it, and it's just a matter of Apple actually going through and making those changes. So there's nothing I can do about that because there's nothing more I would like than to get rid of that old logo because it's just honestly brings bad memories at this point every time I see it. Not about the show, but just about, our podcast having that logo. It just puts
Except not on your chest, right? Because it's the same font. And it's the same on that T-shirt you got.
Yeah.
If I'm honestly pretty jealous about, but I still want to get. I still want to get one.
Dude, I just I got this Unsolved Mysteries T-shirt recently from Redbubble.com. I'm not even plugging or promoting them. I'm just saying that's where I got it, and yeah,
that's where I got the font and everything. That's where I got the thing that we used.
Oh,
is from there.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. Yeah, I got it for the.
So that's why I was surprised about why they had such a big problem with it.
Yeah, you never know who else they're sending cease and desist letters to, though. But the fact that they're still around and their shit hasn't been taken down kind of tells me that, whatever, that maybe they're not really getting hit as hard as we got hit. I don't know why they. I don't know.
I think it's just because they had your address.
Yeah, that probably had a lot to do with it. Honestly, they don't really have the ability to send cease and desist letters to just anybody's email, or home address or whatever. But anyway, yeah. So I guess we're rolling.
Yep.
Fast and clean, and above the law or below the law or at the level.
Above the law.
I don't know.
You think you're above the law.
Don't leave me with analogies here. I obviously have no command over them. All right, so the first segment we're going to talk about is a fan request. I have a whole list here of the fan requests. Some of them I can find, some of them I can't. Some of them seem to be to only have aired on the Farina ones, which I find that hard to believe because I don't think they ever did any original segments for that.
Well, apparently they did when you look it up on the internet, so...
Did you find that too? With some of them, it seemed like they only...
Yeah.
Yeah, that is weird, because I thought that... it would make sense that, you have the show on in 2008. Why not put some new stuff on there?
I think it should have been all new, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, nothing sucked worse. I remember the inaugural segment that the new Unsolved Mysteries did with Dennis Farina. The very first segment they did was the Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
I guess because they were trying to garner, he's still relevant, Nirvana's still around, and they're still so let's have that be the first segment of the show for the first episode. And I remember watching it just going just the feeling of just disappointment and not even being able to lie to myself that this was just such a subpar product compared to the old show.
This is a deja vu.
Yeah, it
and
was.
not the good kind of deja vu.
Yeah, it was.
Well, I don't think there is a good kind of deja vu.
Yeah, I hate that feeling. I'm not a huge fan of that. It's really weird. Sometimes it'll last for like a good minute too, which is creepy.
Well, that's probably what it was like watching that episode.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Kurt Cobain case is such a weird case to start on too, because it's like it's already been kind of like investigated in like so many different angles. I mean, I'm not above talking about it on this podcast. I mean, I wouldn't mind talking about it just because I any time I get an excuse to talk about music, I'm gonna take that opportunity. But it's kind of like Loch Ness monster and all, like Bigfoot to a certain extent. It's just been so over explained and over investigated. It's just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Did Kurt Cobain kill himself, or did Courtney do it? I don't know. I'm thinking he probably killed himself.
Yeah.
There are some things that stick out, like the last few lines of his suicide note were clearly not his handwriting, and it was supposed to be a retirement letter to his fans, but I don't see him writing a retirement letter to his fans. That seems kind of Anyway, we're not talking about that segment right now. We're talking about
sounds like when you compare, when people talk about the Terminator versus T2, and I love both films, but as much as I really like T2, I would honestly rather talk more about the Terminator, and I'd rather watch the Terminator over T2. Because T2 is one of those films that I feel like I've already watched before I even decide to sit down and watch it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's really cool, though. I mean, Terminator 2 is that's just...
Oh, yeah.
It's very entertaining, I would say, with all the special effects and all.
It's a great movie. It's just... I don't know. It's the kind of the overplayed thing. Psycho is another film for me. The original Psycho. That's like that.
Hey, Mike.
The shower scene has no... really doesn't have any impact anymore.
Hey, Mike.
What?
Guess what?
You haven't seen Psycho?
Nope.
I had a feeling.
And your hatred for me grows really. Daily.
Not really, because I'm okay with that. It's fine.
If like I've said before, I'll say it again. If I made a list of the movies that I haven't seen, you would stop talking to me. I think. I'm pretty sure.
Nah.
Well, at least some people get enjoyment out of the movies I haven't seen. One of the people who listens to our show messaged me about how she gets a kick about how I never know any of the references that you drop, and whatever. So I'm glad that my stupidity, and well, not stupidity, but my ignorance of movie references and I'm over here thinking like I've seen so many movies, I've seen so many critically acclaimed films that probably other people haven't seen, like Koyaanisqatsi, that musical movie that
I've heard of that, and that's how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
I did not know that's how you pronounce it. I was pronouncing it wrong the whole time. I have not seen that, but I've heard of it. It just hasn't really interested me that much.
It's great. Well, I think the reason why it did interest me was it was mainly kind of a music movie. It was Philip Glass who composed the entire score for the movie, and I love Philip Glass's work, and the juxtaposition of nature, and it slowly and it's like all time lapse for the most part, and it shows how technology slowly creeps in.
I think there's a sequel as well.
Yeah, I believe so. But yeah, that movie was really good, and I'm sitting here thinking like, man, I've seen all these like underground movies, and then I meet you, and you're like, well, there's this movie and this movie and this movie. I'm like, what? I thought there was only like 50 movies in the world, and I thought I saw them all. Apparently, there's more.
Yeah, there's millions of movies.
God,
it's gotten crazy to catch up on all of the ones that have been released. That's why I don't really complain that much about a movie not being 100% original anymore, because it's impossible.
Yeah, same with music, man. It's like everyone's dropping new albums left and right, and it's like, I don't know. I think becoming an old person is when you just kind of get to that point to where you stop taking in new stuff, and or maybe you still take in new stuff, but it doesn't really have any influence over you like it did when you were younger, and you just kind of pick the stuff that you like, and you're like, okay, I'm sticking with these core things, and I'm not taking any new stuff. Sorry, society. I'm not taking any new bands. I'm not taking any new movies or, whatever. You just kind of like stick to the whatever
I'm not at that point yet. So,
dude, I'm getting there with music. I'm really getting there with music. I mean, I'm slowly opening up to like more hip hop stuff that I kind of slept on in the 2000s. Like,
I'm there with reboots and remakes, but not with a lot of the other genres.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's like I don't know. This show started out as Tech Talk, and now it's moved on to Josh and Mike discuss movies and music.
Hey, this it's our show.
That's right. That's right. We can't forget that. At the end of the day, it is our show.
Anyway, the case that was requested was the case of Angela Hammond.
Yes. Let's dig into this dinner roll.
In the picture here, she has I mean, I know I'm not supposed to, she went missing and was probably not alive anymore. But the picture they use here is not the most flattering photo of her, I have to be honest. So she's got that helmet, 80s hair with the bangs and the perm.
Okay, she's got some crazy bangs going on, almost like the wannabe Cleopatra bangs, but not. I mean, I think she's a really pretty girl.
She is. It's just the 80s.
The fashion, she was a victim of the fashion of the time. With a lot of these people on here, and like anytime you watch any like news footage from like the 80s or 90s, and it shows some of the people, and since I'm attracted to women, I guess I'll comment on the women on there because those are the ones that I'm looking at mainly. Well, 100%, I should say.
Unless it's somebody with a moon pie face that you want to slap.
Yeah, yes, then I focus on that too. But like, I'm like looking at these people and I'm like, man, if you like straightened your hair and took those stupid glasses off that were the size of your entire face, and like, maybe got a tattoo here or there, I'm like, man, she would look really good, But they're wearing these shoulder pad
Coke bottle glasses.
Yeah, these shoulder pad dresses and like just Elaine from Seinfeld basically style clothing and hair and I don't know why fashion and I don't know why that stuff usually ages as bad as it does, but man, the 80s and 90s in particular was like, even the guys, everyone wore their pants past their belly button, everyone tucked their shirts in at all times. The guys all had mustaches, which I think is kind of a cool look. You
had that 80s fad of the acid wash jeans. My dad actually had those. Yeah, I think it acid wash jacket as well, and like snakeskin boots, and he was a big fan of that band Whitesnake.
Oh my god!
So he had like white snakeskin boots. It was so bad, it really was.
The biggest thing I remember from the 90s is literally every like grown up woman that I saw wore their pants up past their belly button, and for some God knows what reason that fad has come back a little bit. Like, I see girls from time to time who wear their jeans up high like that. I call it the mom jean look. It looks good on some people, and like now that I see it, when I go out sometimes I'm like, that actually doesn't look that bad. But yeah, man, I know
the leggings made a huge comeback, but without the leg warmers.
Yeah, which I am not going to complain about leggings at all. I like.
Anyway,
seeing that.
The case is about Angela Hammond, who was 20 years old and 4 months pregnant when she disappeared.
Yeah. Okay. So this takes place in Clinton, Missouri. Population 9,000. It was an idyllic farming community. It's a community that felt isolated from the big city crime, but now it's different. A popular woman has been abducted and is still missing. Angela Hammond was an active, outgoing 20-year-old. Her family had lived in Clinton for 3 generations. Her fiancé, Rob Schaefer, was a star athlete in high school who looked forward to a career in the military. In January of 1991, Rob gave Angie a diamond ring and promised that he would always take care of her. Aww. April 14th, 1991, at around 10 p.m., Angie dropped Rob off at his house after a barbecue. She said she'd phone him a few hours later. At 11:15, Angie called Rob from a payphone in the center of town 7 blocks away from his house. Quote, "We were talking on the phone and she mentioned to me about a truck that kept circling around the block, a green pickup truck." That was Rob who said that. Angie remained unconcerned until the truck parked next to the phone booth. Angie described the truck as a late model pickup truck that had a big fish decal in the back window. Rob was trying to get Angie to describe the guy as much as possible on the phone. They blew it off and they started talking about something else because, the guy went to the phone next to theirs and he just seemed like he was overall kind of not really regarding Angie very much. So, they tried to change the subject. That was until Rob heard the scream of Angie over the phone. At that point, Rob immediately booked it downtown to figure out what was going on. Rob saw a pickup truck driving past him and heard someone yell out, "Robbie!" Rob threw the car in reverse and did some movie-like fucking twisty spin in his car. And
the segment did a great job reenacting this. This is very cinematic.
Yeah.
This was probably any boyfriend's or any girlfriend's worst nightmare. If she ends up, hearing her boyfriend scream on the other end of the line. It's a very blood chilling moment.
Helpless.
And
you feel so helpless. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, you can think of almost any other thing that could happen to your girlfriend and you have some ability to handle the situation or to help, but in an abduction, it's like, what can you do besides just have nightmares? I can't even, I just kind of went through like a breakup, and I don't even really talk about this on Facebook, so I don't know why I'm talking about it now. So my emotions are still kind of raw from that. Yeah. So I'm just kind of thinking about like this situation kind of like hits me more than it probably normally would because, of the emotional kind of aspect of everything. But yeah, that's got to be terrifying. So he had thrown his car in reverse and he was chasing after this green truck. Rob pursued the pickup straight through the downtown business district. Rob didn't know, but when he threw his car in reverse, he severely messed up the transmission.
Yeah, that was such a bummer, really.
Yeah. When the truck made a sharp turn, the truck got away, and Rob's car finally gave out on him. That's got to be a horrible feeling. Oh, my God. You're, like, pursuing this guy thinking, like, I'm going to kill this MFer as soon as I catch up with him, and then your damn
I'm going to rescue my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then your car
just stops. Oh, man. Oh, jeez. Rob did everything he could, but he thinks that people blame him. Quote, "The beginning's the hardest part because you were close enough to get him, but you just didn't get the job done. You still wake up in the middle of the night wondering where she is or if anyone is still looking for her. You just always wonder."
Well, how is it his fault? How can anybody really say that he should be to blame for that? I mean, that's ridiculous to me.
Well, if you look at what kind of person he is, he was star athlete, looking to go into the military. This is one of those like guys probably,
So what did they think? Well, he threw the car in reverse, and they were like, "Oh, he doesn't know how cars work, and that's why it happened." No, it sounds like it's a car problem. Like, I don't think your transmission should go out just because you put the car in reverse.
I mean, if you're driving your car like in a forward kind of momentum and you swing it around and you don't brake properly and all that, you will definitely fuck your transmission up like that.
So maybe in some instances but still, there's no guarantee that he was going to be able to catch up with a guy, even if his transmission didn't get.
It's always it's like he says, you just always wonder, and that's a prison in and of itself because you got to be thinking all the time, what.
Well, yeah, I mean, by that instance, I don't think, especially if you're from the outside looking in, I don't think you should be like, well, what if you did this or what if you did that?
No, and I don't think anyone would have said that. I think he bears that burden all on his own, even though he thinks people blame him.
Maybe he's right. Maybe people are blaming him. And that does happen a lot of times in these type of tragic situations.
Well, very ignorant people who aren't thinking straight if they were to ever, It's like the guy who shot Brandon Lee, last week, Anybody who would blame that guy, these are the same kind of idiots who would blame this guy, It's like he had nothing to do with it. The perpetrator was the one who should be blamed, not the knight in shining.
But that's people for you.
Human nature, yeah. So the news of Angie's disappearance sent shockwaves through Clinton, which again is the name of the city, not the runner-up for president who just lost.
Let's not go there.
Oh no, I'm not going there. I'm just saying, like, I don't want people to think I'm randomly bringing up a Clinton. And there's no tone in my voice in that one way or another. Okay, so you don't derive any meaning from that. All right. The police and citizens.
No comment.
Yeah, no comment. The police and citizens launched an extensive air and land search, but there were no sign of Angie or her abductor. Quote, the Missouri Highway Patrol did a computer search for all the vehicles that matched the description and model of the car and came up with 1,600 results. They had to check into that and make sure that the vehicle matched both the color and the decal on the back window. They didn't end up finding any matches.
The decal was one of the things that also stood out to me. It was this kind of innocuous looking decal, but it was also one you don't see very often, of like this. It looked like it was from the point of view of somebody in a boat, and then there's like a fish.
It's your typical, I mean, in the South you see it all the time. It's your typical, like, decal of, like, a bass, like, jumping out of the water,
yeah,
like, with, like, a lure in its mouth on a fishing string or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so innocuous looking, it's hard to really imagine it being something that's part of an abduction vehicle. Like, normally when you think of vehicles that people use to abduct people, you think of those, like, vans with no windows, or you know, dark windows you can't see.
Man, I think people disguise themselves in any way possible for, you know, to hide their sick.
But it's just the segment did a great job just showing the decal and it made the decal itself kind of creepy because of the way that it was lit.
Yeah, it was all dark
and the music. Yeah.
Fishing's supposed to be a fun, peaceful thing, and here it's kind of cast in this rapey light. So the Missouri, I already said that. The police based their investigation off Rob's testimony because that's all they really had to go on. But when no witnesses came forward to corroborate Rob's statement, Rob became a suspect. Within a week, however, Rob was cleared of any involvement in Angie's disappearance. 2 days later, police connected the abduction in Clinton to two other unsolved cases within a 100-mile radius. The first occurred near Max Creek, Missouri on January 13th, 1991. 42-year-old Trudy Darby, had a mistype in here and it's Turdy Darby.
No wonder you were
good old Turdy. Man, that was really shitty of me to do that. But 42-year-old Trudy Darby. Oh, and by the way, with the whole language thing, it now says explicit lyrics on our podcast because I went and changed it. So screw you people who complain about the language. It's marked now. You have been warned. Before you let little Billy listen to the podcast, we use adult.
Billy shouldn't be listening to this fucking podcast anyway.
No, he fucking shouldn't be listening to the podcast because, you know, little Billy doesn't need to be thinking about murders and rapes and UFOs.
Aliens.
Yeah, aliens.
Ghosts.
42-year-old Trudy Darby was working alone at a convenience store. At 10 p.m., she called her son to report a suspicious man lurking outside the store. Less than 10 minutes later, Trudy's son arrived. Mouthful of marbles there. Trudy's son arrived at the store and found it completely deserted. 2 days later, the body of Trudy Darby was found on a riverbank 10 miles from the store. She had been shot twice in the head. And what fucking pointless violence, man.
She had also been raped.
Oh my God, what is wrong? You know, that's one thing. It's one thing to watch these segments and to just kind of be like, damn, you know, that sucks, and for the scene to just go by, but to actually have to type this out for my notes and to talk about it like this, it's just like, God, you know, you have to like focus and think and ruminate on this shit, and it's just really unfortunate.
Yeah.
On February 28th, 30-year-old Cheryl Ann Kenny was reported missing as well in Nevada, Missouri. And I think that's how they say it, Nevada, Missouri. Several miles.
I've never heard Nevada.
Yeah, that's what they say.
I think they're just trying to separate themselves from Nevada. We're not from Nevada. We're from Nevada.
I love how you're like, Nevada? I've never heard of that city, and I've heard of all cities in the U.S. This is surprising, because this is one I haven't heard of.
No, I haven't heard of Nevada before.
And here I thought I was a master on all the names of all the cities.
I never was a master of all the names of
Did
cities.
you know there's a Butte, Arizona? It's called Butte, but it's spelled B-U.
There's a Weed, Oregon.
Oh, man, that's what I'm talking about, man. The amendment just passed here in Florida, man. Medical marijuana is legal now. It's awesome. Anyway, several miles from Max Creek is where Cheryl Ann Kenny was found. She vanished shortly after closing yet another convenience store, which she worked. Cheryl's car was found in the store's parking lot. She has not been seen since. A month later, Angela was abducted, the person who the story is about. So it's kind of like you have these two cases where there are abduction of women, and one's found murdered. I don't think it says if Cheryl Ann Kenny was ever found or not, but now you have Angela, who is missing a month later. So there seems to be a connection.
Sounds like there could be a serial, rapist, a murderer.
They fear that a serial killer might be in west central Missouri. They hold out little hope that Angela is still alive, but there have been unconfirmed sightings of Angela in Canada and other parts of the U.S. There's one final chilling detail. After she screamed into the phone, Rob heard another person on the phone speak. All he said was, "I didn't need to use the phone anyway."
Oh.
Before she disappeared, Angela, I'm calling her Angie like we're like really good friends or something.
That just gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, it's pretty crappy. Before she disappeared, Angela described the man as filthy and bearded. So basically, a hipster abducted her, and it says
Angela's abductor. This is from the Wikia. Is a white old bearded man. Who wore glasses and drove an older late 60s to early 70s model two-tone Ford pickup with a mural of a fish jumping out of water on the back window. Rumors are he may have been serial killer Kenneth McDuff, whose killing spree spanned from 1966 to 1992,
Jeez.
But this is unconfirmed.
So, Angela is still missing, or I don't know, you have the wiki in front of you. Is she still missing?
Yeah, the case is still unsolved. Trudy's murder, though, was eventually solved when Jesse Rush, 15, and Marvin Cheney, 29, were convicted of it, but Cheryl and Angela's cases still remain unsolved. One rumor suggests Angela was murdered and thrown into a well in the old Artisan Park in Clinton, Missouri, close to the site of a very old water ride, but it is unknown if this has been explored.
That's a fucking bummer, man. I hate hearing about that.
And also, apparently, this case was also featured on, of all things, on the Mary Povich show.
Really? So there was a point before Maury Povich did DNA tests and You're the Father, apparently. There was a time when that wasn't all his show was. Huh, good to know.
Yeah.
Because that's all it is now. I guess they saw the ratings and they're like, yeah, we're really seeing a lot of ratings here with the, DNA test results being in and all.
You are not the baby's daddy.
God, that show is so crazy. Oh my God. Anyway, I don't even want to lower our podcast to even talking about crap like that. So that's that case. That was requested. God! That was requested. I'm not even editing that. That was requested by one of our listeners, I think back in the old YouTube days when you could find these on YouTube before the rebranding.
Yeah, I'm gonna work on getting a probably a little bit after sometime after Thanksgiving. I'm gonna try to get a channel up and post the segments on YouTube.
So I hope you enjoyed our commentary on that. If you have any clues, contact the Missouri State Police, or don't write Unsolved Mysteries because there's a chance that John or Terry will sue you. So anyway, that's probably libel or something. I don't know. I probably shouldn't say that. I redact that statement. I'm just joking. Calm down. Okay, so next one we're moving on to is actually Mike chose this one. One of my I'll tell you a little story about this next segment. It's Alan Mann, and it's a ghost story. And this is one I did not remember from my childhood, but when my ex-girlfriend bought me the Ultimate Collection box set back in like 2008 or 2009, This was one of the only ghost segments that I still had to look away at a certain point or mute at a certain point, because there's a scene in this segment that scared me that scared me even as an adult, even as like a 20-year-old at the time, or 21 or whatever, it still scared the crap out of me. So, they did it. That's just a testament to how good the reenactment was for this particular one.
Yeah, I chose this one because it's one I actually do remember seeing when I was a kid, and I wasn't watching the stuff that I got online of the box set that I burned onto DVDRs for myself. I was watching the segments that were, it was just immediately things started to click. Because even when I was watching these other ghost episodes, I was trying to where's the one with the light bulb that shoots flames out of it? Like, that's the thing that was sticking in my head. And I was like, I know there's I was like, there's an Unsolved Mysteries ghost episode that has that in it. Because I remember that. But then, like, all the other ones I'd seen so far, because I'm up to, like, season 6, and I haven't seen it yet. So I was thinking, am I getting confused with an episode of, like, Discovery Channel's A Haunting or something? Apparently not, because this is the episode. This is the one with that particular sequence that I really remembered, and a few other things that stuck with me, including that scene that Josh is very creeped out by. This is about the Allen Mann house. I love how Robert Stack shows up and he in the beginning, and there's like this fog in front of the house, and he talks about Halloween, which that was really perfect. Yeah. It's kind of like, it's a perfect type of ghost story to talk about on Halloween. And this occurred in the fall of 1991, around the time of Halloween, where 19-year-old Allen Mann lived with his parents and worked nights. During the day, he was often home alone, but one day he seemed to encounter a mysterious female spirit. He says, I had the afternoon off, and I'd come home, and I guess it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd finally gotten some sleep. The figure turned away from the door like it was leaving, and by the time I got up and walked 3 paces to the door, I don't know what happened. It just turned the corner and disappeared. He said he looked high and low for the mysterious woman, and even though the doors were locked from the inside, she was nowhere to be found. He told his mother, Sandra, he thought he'd seen a ghost, but she refused to believe him.
Yeah, I remember that scene. It shows him, like, going to sleep. And I know it's not mature or tactful to sit here and comment on people's looks, but this is another episode where this guy, Alan, he's kind of rough looking. Kind of a rough looking dude.
He's got that moon pie face.
Definitely got a moon pie face. Definitely on the bigger side.
Moon pie body.
He's a moon pie body to match. Yet he's somehow married to he has a hot wife.
Yeah, especially the reenactment. This guy looked like, I gotta be honest, when I saw him, I thought the first word that came to my mind was schlub.
Yeah, he is a schlub. He is very schlubby. That's a good terminology for this guy. And
I'm like, how did this schlub get such a hottie? I don't
yeah, and honestly, we need to again redact these statements, because not only was it messed up that he was able to get with her, she was only 16 when they married.
Yeah.
So we're technically not allowed to find her attractive in any way. So take that back.
No, but I'm talking about the actress in the reenactment later on. Like, she was obviously not 16.
I'm talking about both of them. I mean, I thought they were both attractive.
Yeah. I thought you were talking about to both Alan and the actress. I was like,
oh, no. Oh, yeah, Alan's sexy. It's a lot of man to keep you warm at night. He's a big, fluffy man. Anyway, that's besides the point. But, yeah, the dude's asleep in his bed, and, again, the only problem I have with Unsolved Mysteries ghost segments is when they do have to use the actual ghosting effect, where, they superimpose the actor over the scene, and they just they remove the opacity so you can see through them, and boom, there's your ghost. It's a very common, easy effect to do in any editing thing.
I prefer that over just some completely CGI generated ghost.
I like the ghost segments the best where they don't actually use a figure, or if they do use a figure, it's not a recognizable human figure, like in the Black Hope Curse.
Yeah,
The two entities in the guy's living room
I
would
don't
just
mind that though, because most apparitions, from what I've read, are distinctly human figures.
yeah, that's true. I guess I'd have to see one to really believe it, but yeah, she was in the doorway and he went to put his glasses on. He was like, because he woke up from a nap. He was like,
He made that noise like some
yeah, well, he's
Tunes
schlubby.
there.
That's the schlub noise. But she was all like, Alan, and
That just made me think of Jurassic Park 3 when the scene where where Alan has a dream, and he's on the plane and he turns around and there's a raptor and it goes, Alan.
oh my god, yeah, yet another movie I haven't seen.
I like the movie more than a lot of people do, but I have to admit that scene is really ridiculous.
Yeah, so anyway, yeah, I remember that scene, and then the ghost lady disappears, and he finds that, all the doors in his house are locked.
19? Like, that guy was the actor was supposed to play like a 19-year-old. I don't know. It's one big 19-year-old. Then anyway, eventually he married a girl named Linda, who apparently was 16 at the time. I guess that's legal
Wherever
in
they
Lake
were.
Wales, Florida.
Oh, that was in Florida?
Yep.
Oh, that makes sense. It all makes sense now. Happened in my home state. Now it's all coming together.
So shortly, so he married her. She also moved in with him. Apparently he had enough space for her, which is pretty crazy. And shortly after the wedding, Sandra was watching TV with her new daughter-in-law, and they both encountered the ghost. I have my little dog Prince beside me, and he was on a pillow, she describes it. And I looked down at the end of the couch, and I saw this white smoky thing. The first thing I thought was fire, and by that time, the dog had gotten up on his feet, and then it just disappeared. And the way they showed it in the reenactment was some kind of vague-looking CG cloud.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me, too, for some reason, when I saw that as a kid. And it still kind of does. I mean, it's that kind of ethereal quality about it. It doesn't really have a form. So I see what you mean, is like, it's more eerie to me to see like the shadow stuff or like just a formless thing. It's still, if I saw an apparition and it was somebody just see-through person I could see clear as day, that'd still scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, but I'd have to see that in person, because I just know, like, I guess I'm behind the curtain too much with like editing and stuff. I just see that and I'm like, that's just so easily fake.
Well, I know a lot about makeup effects and how they do special effects on movies and stuff, and I like I've said, I prefer that approach, the old school way like that, if you're going to show an apparition, versus doing something that's completely computer generated.
Like I said,
Because
I like it.
That I can at least see the other form. It's actually an actress or something that they made see through. So there's actually something physical there. With CG, it's a computer generated image, and you could tell.
I just feel like with ghost segments on Unsolved Mysteries, the less they actually show you, the less they reveal, the better. The more noises and the more foreboding and creepy lighting, and the more of the atmosphere they get right, the better, rather than actually showing the man behind the curtain. Showing the actual, because once you see
it's like that the documentary. It's not really a documentary. It's more of a pseudo documentary, and it's a shitty movie. The Nightmare, which talked about people who had this form of sleep. It's like the, I forgot the exact name of it. It's these people who they go to sleep and they hallucinate while they're asleep. There's a special term for it, and it's just not coming to me right now. Damn it! But it's one of those things where they've kind of associated that with some ghost sightings and aliens and stuff like that. Is these people who they fall asleep, but their eyes are still open, and their brain is still technically operating and working, but they're asleep.
Kind of, you'd almost have to redefine what the definition of sleep is really at that point, because, I mean, when I think sleep, I think, your body shuts down, you're in restorative recovery, rebuilding mode. And if your eyes are open and you're still doing some kind of functions, to me, that's not, it's a
Sleep paralysis. That's what it is.
well, paralysis. How are they moving around if they're paralyzed?
They don't move around.
Oh, their eyes are open and they're...
Yeah, it's very horrifying.
I can imagine. It'd be like seeing a dead body. You know what segment I do like the CG that they use, like where they, or not the CG, but where they do use the see-through person look, is the Devil's Backbone. That's a really good ghost segment where I don't mind because it has the Native American who's see-through, and I thought that was a really chill. That's actually really scary. That's a pretty chilling ghost segment in and of itself. We'll have to talk about that sometime.
So anyway, so you see this amorphous, formless thing, and it's a decent effect. So even though Linda hadn't seen the apparition, she was convinced that the house was haunted. Determined to get the scoop, she enlisted a friend with a Ouija board, and with Alan, they obtained the name Kramer, but no one knew who that was. I just imagine Kramer from Seinfeld.
I'm Cosmo Kramer, the ass man.
Oh, can you imagine that? Just Kramer's ghost.
Just like sliding through the front door, like, Alan, you got any Tupperware I can borrow? I'm making a casserole.
There would be one annoying ghost.
Kramer.
Alan's father, David Mann, however, remained a skeptic until one day, and when he suddenly produced another name. I stopped right in the middle of the hall, he says, and I caught the smell again. Because they've been smelling this, like, it smelled like death. Like rotting flesh or something. So, and he says, I didn't have any explanation for, and it's like you get an idea, a little voice inside your head, like your conscience or whatever it is. And this little voice that you listen to, it said, this is Isabella. On another night, Alan described Linda suddenly attacking him in their bedroom. And this is where it gets really... This is the moment Josh is talking about. I'll let him take the floor here.
So they have this scene in this segment where they're in the bedroom and they're watching TV, and it's Alan and his, I guess, fiance or wife or whatever, and they're watching TV. His wife. Creeper. Even though I said she was attractive. So there's a scene in there, and I don't know why exactly it frightened me. I guess because it just came out of nowhere, and this is what I'm talking about, where like things are more frightening to me whenever it's as natural or as practical of an effect as it can be. All of a sudden, apparently his wife just gets possessed, and like the camera pans into her face like very quickly, like almost unexpectedly, like they're just sitting in bed, and all of a sudden she just starts going and she just starts laughing this really evil laugh, and like her eyes get really big, and just the look on her face is very creepy to me.
Yeah.
And they like kind of zoom in on her face, and like I don't know. At that moment, I kind of had to look away, and I was like, "Dude, what is this? This is kind of weird. Like, I don't know why this is hitting me the way it is, but this is."
It is. It's very. I mean, it's just it's like. Yeah, it's a very kind of creepy, definitely very creepy.
And then apparently she gets like this superhuman strength and like starts trying to like pin Alan down to the bed or whatever, and like,
that's when it like really like the creepy laugh thing like. That's creepy, but I've seen a lot of horror films, so it was still eerie and weird, but it wasn't like, oh, I wasn't like really freaked out by that. But when she started showing superhuman strength, then I was like, oh, okay, like this is really bad.
Well, I mean,
like this isn't just like someone's having a mental breakdown or something. Like she's possessed.
True. Well, the facial expression she made creeped me out the most.
That is creepy.
I'm big on like facial expressions, in your face, and that to me can be funny, scary.
She had this really just disturbing grin on her face.
Yeah, it was ghoulish. So she was like pinning him down and like laughing and being crazy, and I think most guys would be like, hey, but he was pretty freaked out by it. I think I would be too, because obviously it's a different person in the body at that point. And he's like, I'm a strong guy, and she's really little, and I wasn't able to get her off me. And then the parents like heard all the hubbub and came into the room, and they had to kind of like peel her off of him because he was like, "Stop," like
Yeah.
cut it out.
So according to him, yeah, this is his recollection of it. He said all of a sudden she just snapped and she got this weird look, and then she pretty much attacked me, and she was laughing. She had some weird laugh I had never heard. It didn't even sound like her. She had this squeaky little giggle, and this was almost an evil laugh. It wasn't almost an evil laugh. It was an evil laugh. I tried to get away, and it made her get more violent, and she started putting more force on my arms. So I pushed against her, and I slammed her against the wall 3 times, and she released me. She put her head on my shoulder again and started talking, and picked up the conversation exactly where she left off before she snapped. Linda has no memories of the incident, she says. That's not me. I don't have an evil laugh. I don't do the things that he says I do. It's just not my type. I'm not that type of person. I just don't remember.
I felt her wording. I mean, I know she was kind of on the spot in that interview, but I thought that was kind of a weird statement. She's like, that's not like I'm not that type. I'm not that type of person. Well, what type of person? The one who laughs evilly and gets superhuman strength and pins people? I don't think there's a lot of people who are that type, lady. I
know, but I didn't mind it because it's just. I don't know. She reaction too. I'd be like, that's not me. I'm not like that at all.
Yeah, she was kind of hicky, like a little on the hick side. So she's like, "That's not my type.
That's not my type. I'm not that type of person.
I don't say those things, and I don't do that kind of stuff that he was saying that I do. So I just don't know." And he's so sexy, y'all. Let me tell you, this Alan man, he is a man. He's all the man I need. So shit. Yeah, that whole incident happens, and then what happens, Mike?
So, realizing the ghost had turned from random to dangerous, David consulted a spiritualist who told them to pour salt all around the house and keep bags of it under their beds, and even a homegrown exorcism. I love Robert Stack's narration here, because he mentions that, a bunch of snails made a sacrifice that day or something like that. I was just like...
Yeah, the salt didn't seem to stave off anything except for maybe a couple of snails or something like that. Like, I just think it's cute that, like, they'll mention these kind of details every now and then, and I can just imagine the writers in the writer's room being like, let's see what we can get Robert Stack to say, or let's see what kind of funny thing we can throw in there. And yeah, I thought that they'll throw in those cute little things every now and then. I always appreciate those a lot.
Yeah, I don't appreciate it in terrible segments though, like the aphrodisiac segment.
Oh yeah, which we are gonna do that at some point. We're gonna do a worst Unsolved Mysteries segments episode.
Yeah, if you guys have any suggestions for that, what you think are some of the worst ones, go ahead and talk about them. Post some comments on our Facebook or on Patreon.
Yeah, just to show that we're not completely biased towards the show and that we see that it definitely has its faults as well. But, you criticize the ones that you love sometimes.
Exactly. So anyway, this didn't work. The exorcism didn't work either. Blessing the house didn't do anything. Almost everyone in the family also suffered from bad headaches. They began hearing a whole mass of voices. Dull, and then one with muttering with one woman's voice over the top of them, but they could not distinguish anything that they were saying. 2 months later, a visit from a local minister, and after a visit from the local minister, the haunting appeared to stop, but David and Sandra decided they wanted to move. As they were packing, Linda was cursing, swearing at the ghost, when a light bulb exploded in a nearby unplugged lamp. I love that scene because that's the one scene that burned itself in my memory because it was a great effect. It reminded me of something you might see in an Amityville horror movie, and there's been way too many of those films. I've seen there's over 10 of them or something, and that's not counting the unrelated spin-offs, the rip-offs, like the Amityville Asylum or whatever. Oh God.
Yeah, there's so many of those Amityville movies. I've actually seen one of them. That's how you know when there's a lot of a certain movie is when Josh has seen it.
Did you see the first one or
no? I saw the remake. I saw the remake in 2000 or 99 or.
We have Ryan Reynolds trying to be scary, which is honestly kind of funny. Ryan Reynolds trying to be serious and intimidating.
I just remember seeing that at a party in 6th grade or 7th grade. I was in. like we were all watching it, and I remember there was a scene. There was a scene where the guy who lived there was carrying like a bunch of like logs somewhere, and I remember
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, and I remember
Van Wilder himself in Deadpool.
Yeah,
Deadpool.
I remember at that point at the party, I said he's got wood, and everybody laughed, and it got a big laugh. That's the biggest thing I remember about that movie is that I made a joke at one point at this party, and a lot of people laughed at it, and that was like, all right, high point for me. See you guys later. That's my time.
That was such a weird movie. I think you watch at a party. It's in sixth grade.
I think it might have been like a Halloween because this girl
rated R. I mean,
oh, dude, this girl whose house we went to, her parents did not give a shit. Like, I mean, they you know, they stopped at pretty much underage drinking, but I feel like even if we had snuck in some alcohol and got drunk, I feel like they wouldn't have cared. But yeah, they were very like liberal with how I mean, not politically, but they were, you know, very open as to like what they let their daughter like do and watch and all that. But her parties, like, for that, I guess for that reason, were kind of the hot thing to go to in sixth grade or whenever it was.
Yeah. Sounds like it. So in the scene in the segment when the light bulb explodes, it's probably a very simple effect, but the way that they set it up, it's practical. It's not a CGI effect, so it's real fire shooting out of the light bulb, and it's very effective. And I love what she says later. She's like, "I offended the ghost." It's like, that's why I wanted to send one last message to me before I left. So if it was like a really bad movie, it would have they would have looped over something over the audio. So the light bulb would have exploded, and then the ghost would have been like, "Fuck you, bitch."
To me, it looked like they took a blowtorch and they lined it up with the camera to where it was hidden right behind the light and you couldn't see the blowtorch. But if you look at the base of the light...
Yeah, you probably could.
It doesn't really look like the flame is coming right out of the lamp. It looks like it's coming...
I didn't look that deeply into it.
Oh, I did. Because I thought that myself. I thought, oh, that's a unique effect. And then I'm like looking at the base or the top of the lamp and the base of the flame, and I'm like, these aren't exactly lining up.
Yeah, but I like it that it's practical.
Mike, I demand perfection in my effects, okay? So anytime it's not perfect, I'm taking the piss out of it because, you know, I can do better. No, I'm just joking. I don't know why I'm taking the piss out of it. I just thought I'd point that out as a side note. Like, to me, I felt like you could... I mean, it is a great effect, but I felt like that's, you know, probably how they achieved that effect or whatever.
So, apparently, there are no known records for an Isabella Kramer in the house or the neighborhood. To date, no one has answered about who or what haunted the Mann family. Now, there was also an investigation that was also featured in the segment, so it's kind of like a two-part sort of thing. You have the reenactment, and then there's like an investigation that goes on. The Center for Paranormal Studies in Silver Springs, Florida, eventually researched the Mann house. Armed with a truckload of electronic equipment, the center's 3 founders showed up there. Andrew Nichols was one of the parapsychologists on location, and he described it as having an oppressive ambience to it, almost a depressive type of feeling. His team also began to experience headaches, and according to him, Linda and Alan's old bedroom received the highest amount of paranormal activity, and they began taking Polaroid photographs, one during and one after a flux in paranormal activity, which when he's using that, it just reminds me of those horrible movies, Paranormal Activity, which I hate this. I like to call them paranormal fucktivity. And then they began taking Polaroid photographs, one during and one after a flux in paranormal activity. The second photograph is normal, but Andrew noticed something strange in the first one. And there was a vague humanoid shape in the forefront of the picture. It may be a reflection of some unusual environmental effect, but it also may be a strange artifact of the human psyche. Or it may be a contact with a dimension of existence that's beyond our imagination.
Now, a few things here. A, I'm surprised they didn't get Dr. William Roll in on this action, because, I mean, he's just anywhere a ghost turns up. Unsolved Mysteries gets William Roll in there. 2, from the segment, they actually described the smell. They said that it was almost like a diesel or gasoline smell that you could smell in there. I guess, along with the death smell. 3, the dad, I always remember how the dad I think my mom was watching that segment with me one time, and the dad's like, "Oh, I just slubbed it off because I just didn't want to deal with it, and I just didn't want to, didn't want to mess with it, and didn't want to think about it." And when my mom saw the guy say that, she's like, "Yeah, that's a typical Northern attitude towards things." I remember her saying that. I guess this guy had a very Northern attitude about this ghost.
Yeah, I remember that as well, but I also remember just the schlubby guy and his reactions to things too.
Oh, wait, no, the actual verbatim thing he said is, "I just sloughed it off." And I remember that because I'm like, oh, it's kind of a weird, like, descriptor. But anyway, I'm trying to think of any other recollections I have about this segment. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It was good. It was kind of it was a shorter one. It was one that, like, literally actually kind of frightened me because that reenactment came out of nowhere, where the chick just started laughing menacingly and the grimace on her face and all that. It was just it was disturbing. I remember how large and unappealing physically that the Alan man was, and wondering how he ended up with that girl. And
he looks like if Mario ate far too many mushrooms.
He does.
Ate too many mushrooms.
Yes, he does have a very Mario-esque look to him. He's very rotund. And then I also remember how he's 19 and she's 16, and A, that's probably illegal, and B, like, as a 19-year-old, committing the rest of your life to somebody, I mean, stranger things have happened, but as a 16-year-old female, like, what? Why would you get married? What? I mean, didn't you just learn how to drive? And aren't you supposed
Did you get pregnant? I mean, that's the one thing.
Yeah, perhaps.
That I'm wondering.
It's in my state. I know that's not legal. Like, if it was in another state, I'd be like, oh, well, that might be legal. It's not legal. It's not legal in Florida.
Maybe it was legal at the time. I don't know.
In the 90s. I don't know. Maybe, but... But, I mean, she's old. She's of age now, obviously, so, whatever. But at the time, that's...
It is bizarre. It is weird.
But, yeah, that's that case. I like talking about stuff that's not murder for once. Because the last podcast was just murder.
Last podcast was just murder.
And it bums me out, dude. Like, just talking about it and thinking about it bums me out. So it's fun to talk about non...
Yeah, I get burned out. Like, sometimes I love to watch reruns of Forensic Files, but like after a certain amount of time, after a certain amount of episodes, it's like, no, I'm good.
Well, I got burned out on the Investigation Discovery Channel as a whole.
A
few years ago.
It's a lot like watching Forensic Files and stuff like that.
Yeah, like every show was just I think my favorite shows on there were
I should have gotten away with it or something.
That's a good show.
I like that one. That's pretty.
Dateline was my favorite show on there.
Dateline and NBC.
Well, they had Dateline on many different networks, but this was Dateline on Investigation Discovery. They even had Dateline on the Oprah Winfrey Network, so it was like Dateline on OWN. But yeah,
I like the ones on ID that were not always about the murder stuff, about the cases, like the people who were just like there was like one that was like about priests or whatever that were like doing crimes, or the people that were supposed to protect the law and they were doing crimes.
That reminds me, because they had Keith Morris, the real skinny old guy. Like, he looks like he's like 90, but he has that real kind of like just that real creepy uncle kind of voice. Like, he did a lot of the voiceovers and interviews for
maybe should have him.
Yeah, like, dude,
do the new Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah, dude, they had so many better choices than Dennis Farina. Oh my god, like, Keith Morris has an amazing voice and presence about him, and he would almost like relish in these murders. When he would narrate, he'd be like, and then Jenny's uncle was interviewed, and what he had to say about the murder weapon wasn't so happy. And then it's like he's narrating in such a cartoony way, and it's like about a murder, and it's just like, God, Keith, can you be a little bit more stoic about this? Someone died, I remember one case they did on Dateline that I loved, that I would love to download and talk about. I mean, procure somehow through a legal way and talk about. It was one about this shared driveway. Maybe some of our listeners know what I'm talking about. It's this shared driveway between Love Song or Bird Song. That was the last name of this one couple. They were a hippie couple, and then it was this lawyer, serious hard ass guy who's this old man, and they shared this like kind of this abutment that like led to both of their driveways, and yeah, they ended up getting into this big dispute, and it's a long story, but anyway, the old lawyer guy who had a completely clean record and everything ended up shooting and killing both the couple that lived next door over this driveway situation. It was crazy, and these are two well-to-do people up in the I think it was the Hollywood Hills or the Hills or something having to do with California, but that was a great one. I remember. But anyway, I think
the dog likes it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not editing that out. That's my dog. Well, it's not my dog. It's my parents' dog, and it is an idiot. It runs off of instinct and barks at any and everything. It has no intelligence in its brain. I've looked deep into its dead eyes, and I've seen no signs of intelligence. It's kind of got like the shark eyes or something like that. It's like yellow and like very black.
Oh, so he had the blackest eyes, like a doll's eyes.
Pretty much. All right, so our final case of this episode is Missing Time. Now, this has been a long time coming that I talk about this segment because Allagash Abductions is my favorite UFO segment of all time. This comes in second place. I mean, that's just how it is. I love this segment. I love the reenactment. I love everything about this segment. Everything was perfect. As far as UFO or strange legends or anything like that, this was my,
I like it, but I have to be honest, I'm not in love with it as much as you are, because the Missing Time thing, it's interesting, but they don't really show a lot of what happens. Is just a lot of
yeah, but that's a thing. It's what they what they didn't show.
I know, but I'll take the Allagash Abductions or some of the other UFO segments over this one, but it's still a good one though, because it is a very interesting thing. Is the whole topic and aspect of Missing Time.
Yeah, well, you know what else is interesting? Your face.
It is interesting, actually.
Oh, you flipped it around on me. That was supposed to really hurt you. Okay, so, Missing Time. Initiate. Imagine for a moment that you go to the corner store for a quick errand. When you return home, you find that what should have taken 10 minutes lasted 3 hours. What's more, you have no memory of it at all. Or as Robert Stack likes to say, at all. He would do this. Whenever the phrase at all would come in, he'd say at all. He'd merge those two together. Anyway, just throwing that out there. We're dealing with a deeply disturbing experience of missing time. And we're going to talk about a few people's stories here. The first story that they focus on is Bob Matthews. The story begins simply enough. On October 1st, 1966, in the Cape Cod town of North Trudeau, is what he sounds like he's saying. Trudeau, like Kevin Trudeau. Fucking charlatan. First class airman Bob Matthews was the only person to get off the bus. Matthews was reporting for his first tour of duty. He noticed that the area that he was dropped off was deserted. Matthews was originally from Philadelphia. Although he didn't know it at the time, his assignment in Cape Cod would be a prelude to the Vietnam War. Bob Matthews was dropped off in front of what I can only tell is Dutcher's Market, is what it sounds like, Dutcher's Market, which is pretty much a convenience store. Now, you got to remember, this was the 60s, so the convenience stores didn't look like they do now. This looked more like just like a general store like you'd see like in the old West or whatever, what have you. But yeah, it was kind of like a convenience store thing. He got off the bus and he phoned the base to let them know that he was there. The officer that he had talked to informed him that a truck would be coming to pick him up. So far, so good, right? Nothing weird happening so far. After Matthews got off the phone, he looked up in the sky and noticed some bizarre light formations. He then felt fear rush over him, and then he called the base again. Now, you gotta imagine, in his mind, he called the base the first time to tell him that he was there. They said, we're sending a truck for you. He says, okay. He puts the phone down. He steps away from the phone, and he looks up into the sky, sees this light, gets freaked out, and then he goes to call the base again. This is one single sequence of events in his mind. When Matthews calls the base again to tell him about the lights that he just saw, the base asked him where he had been. And he said, "I've been waiting in front of Dutra's the whole time." And the base said that they had already sent a truck down there, and he was nowhere to be seen. To which Bob replied, "I've been here the whole time, and no one's been here." The Air Force told Bob Matthews that they had sent a pickup truck for him at around 8:50 p.m., just 5 minutes after his phone call. The driver claimed that Matthews was nowhere in sight. Nearly 1 hour later at 9:45, the Air Force Post received Bob Matthews' second phone call. Yet in Matthews' mind, the time frame had been one continuous event, like I described earlier. When brought back to the base, Matthews was questioned by military officials in civilian clothing. They wanted to know where he had been for that 1 hour period. Matthews stuck to his story and said he was in front of the store the whole time. They kept asking about the lights, like what kind of aircraft did you see and what did it do? Bob thought this was all part of what they did to new recruits as some kind of a hazing ritual. At this point in the segment, Bud Hopkins is interviewed, and he's kind of a key interview in this segment in general.
He did a whole book about missing time, I believe.
Yeah.
And he's also written a few other books about the UFO phenomenon and alien abductions and things like that as well. He's
a famous UFO researcher, and as you said, he wrote several books on missing time. Hopkins is considered a UFO expert. And he's basically just going on to talk about, in most cases of missing time, UFO sightings go together in conjunction with missing time cases.
I think he wrote the called Intruders.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there's actually a made-for-cable adaptation of that. That was actually a TV movie, like a little kind of mini-series.
Oh, okay.
Richard Crenna, I think it was it Richard Crenna or was it Roy Scheider? It was one of those that was in it. I have it like on a screener copy, which I always find that ironic that I own screener copies, which whenever you play a screener copy, it says there's a disclaimer in the beginning, like this is for rental, this is not for home use. Like if you bought this, you shouldn't be having this or something. And they word it better than that, but the whole thing is like, this is for screening purposes only, not for resale. And it's like, well, I have it. So
screeners are just for like people reviewing the movie or doing write-ups before the movie comes out, to my knowledge.
Well, not necessarily. There's a lot of screener copies that actually get sent out to rental places back in the day. They were sent them, and in order to maybe convince the the retailers like Blockbuster or some of these other rental places to actually buy these tapes and put them in their store. It's crazy. And they have these ads in front of them like, oh, if you buy this certain amount, you can get a certain one free. There's another tape free, or you can get these other prizes or these other deals or these other things.
So they're basically promo discs, like that.
VHS, promo tapes.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, tape. Oh, that's old.
They also had screeners on DVD later, but that kind of stopped after a certain amount of time. But now a lot of screeners is for like review purposes or for like Oscar season. That's why you see a lot of movies that are technically not in theaters or still in theaters that are like potential Oscar winners. Like they get leaked on the internet. But yeah, the screener tapes I always thought were fun because they have this whole sort of thing in the beginning, and tapes used to be crazy expensive, like $89.95.
So at the time Hopkins' book came out, those books that I was talking about that he wrote, Intruders and the Missing Time one. At that time, Bob Matthews, the person at the beginning of this story, was being tormented by a secret that he had been wrestling with for years. Quote, "When I was a child, maybe 5 or 6, I just happened to wake up one night and I looked to my right in my bedroom, and there was this figure standing there, a small figure with a green glow to it. And I sat up in my bed and I tried to scream and nothing had come out of my mouth. I thought I had lost my hearing. I thought I had lost my voice. Next thing I knew, everything was black again and I was laying down in bed, and this ghost as I thought it was as a kid, came over and sat down on my bed and pulled up my pajama top, and I don't know what it did to my chest, but I knew it was doing something to my chest, you know? I told my mom there was a ghost in my room, and she assured me that I was only having nightmares, but I went through my whole life wondering if I was crazy or if this really happened. I was on vacation and I was looking for something to read when I saw this book with this creature on it, and at this point in the reenactment, they show him picking up in a store a copy of Bud Hopkins' Intruders, which does have a gray on the cover. And I thought...
That was like an advertisement for the book.
Probably. and I thought, this is a creature that was in my room. I read through the book, and it was like someone had stepped into my head and took my innermost fears and put them in a book. It brought me to tears, you know? I couldn't believe this was actually happening to someone else. End quote. Now, before you go off saying, like, how, you know, this guy picks up a book in a convenience store and it has, like, an alien on it, and he's like, that's what was in my room. And you're like, how did this guy not have any reference point for aliens before this? Yeah, remember, this is 1966. Maybe I think later on, you know, as he's going on vacation, maybe it's a few years later.
Did that book come out in 1966? I don't remember that book. Did it come out that?
Well, the incident that happened to him happened in 1966. I think they flashed forward a few years. Like,
okay, because I was like, I think that book came out like in the 70s sometime at the latest.
Yeah, so
or the 80s. I think it's an 80s book.
Point being that this was in the 70s at some point when pop culture was not saturated with all things UFOs and aliens like we are now. Yes, you know, you may not see UFOs and alien talk on the news or hear it on the radio all the time, but there is a huge a community and saturation of UFO and alien stuff in pop culture, whether it be in our movies and our TV shows. You know, everybody knows about aliens at this point, and there's a working knowledge of what it is and what they are and kind of what the story is with it. And even kids have a working knowledge of kind of like what it's all about. At that time, there was none of that. There was no saturation of this anywhere. So for him to have this vision or this sighting in his room, and then he picks up a book and it has this same thing on it. I mean, yeah, that'd be like a weight. And that, to me, that adds to the authenticity of this guy's story.
Yeah.
Because he is describing this thing and doesn't, you know, there's no point of reference for him at this time in the 70s. It's not like
I don't think the book came out in the 70s, though. Missing Time, a documented study of UFO abductions, came out in 1981. Intruders, Incredible Visitations at Copley Woods came out in 1987. So in 81, there were a decent amount of films at the time that had dealt with extraterrestrials. For instance, you know, not really Alien, I don't know if it's a good example, but with like Grace, for instance, Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out in 1977.
Damn, it came out that long ago?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I don't know. I still stick to the fact that it, you know, you think about the 90s where there really was a huge proliferation of UFO sightings, and you even had shows like X-Files that came as a direct result of all the sighting.
Well, also the internet wasn't around, so you didn't have that either.
And a lot of people don't realize that about the show X-Files. That show came about as a result of all the sightings that were being seen in the 90s at the time. That's kind of what bred the popularity of that show, because
it's just a great show, period, at least for the first few seasons or so.
I couldn't get into it. I don't think it's a bad show.
Really, it's not the first of its kind, because it doesn't just deal with aliens. X-Files does it with other stuff as well. There's a show called Kolchak the Night Stalker, which was a 70s show. There's 2 TV movies. There was one called Kolchak the Night Stalker with Darren McGavin, who I don't know. Have you seen A Christmas Story? Have you seen that film before?
Yes.
Darren McGavin played the father. You know, the one who loved that lamp. You know, the like a lamp. You know, fragile. That guy. Well, he played Kolchak. He was this investigative reporter named Carl Kolchak, and in the 70s there was these popular TV movies, Kolchak the Night Stalker and Kolchak the Night Strangler. Now, the Night Stalker was about a vampire. It was about this reporter, you know, going around discovering, you know, that there's a vampire in the city. And then there was a show that happened which sadly didn't last very long, like only one season. But he encountered a lot of different things. There was a reporter investigating all different types of stuff, cryptozoological type of things, just like the X-Files would do later in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
So, and ironically enough, Night Stalker also had like a reboot or something in the 2000s, but it wasn't nearly as good. But anyway, when I thought of this story, it reminded me of the sleep paralysis thing again. Because a lot of people who experience sleep paralysis experience the same sort of thing where they're paralyzed. They feel like they can't breathe, and they see these things. And that's what it kind of reminded me of. So part of me is wondering whether or not what he experienced when he was a kid was sleep paralysis, or whether or not it was, actually an encounter with some alien being.
Yeah, I mean, the childhood thing is up for grabs, but the missing time thing that happened to him later on,
that's the main thing.
Yeah.
The childhood thing, those might be they might be connected, but then again, they might not.
So Bob Matthews met up with Bud Hopkins, and he put Matthews under hypnosis. At the time, Bob Matthews began to recollect the details of what happened that night in front of Dutcher's Market. Hopkins explains how Bob Matthews' missing time case is a good case because there's an indirect witness to Bob's disappearance, the guy who was supposed to pick him up from the military. Mm-hmm. That makes it a better case to add validity. Matthews goes on, as he's under hypnosis, to describe, what actually happened in that time that he was missing. He says he observed 2 or 3 lights that hovered. The red light came so fast, if he had blinked his eye, he would have missed it. Momentarily hovers in the parking lot, this craft, and then some light coming from a crack, like a ramp, comes down, and then this ramp comes down, and then Matthews, it's got him in the actual parking lot of this actual market where this happened for the segment at this point, and Matthews points to the specific spot where the ramp came down. He says he walked up the ramp and looked inside and saw 4 beings sitting on the left and 2 sitting on the right, and the place reminded Matthews of a doctor's office. He said it was very clinical. It was very clean. He remembered sitting down on a bench and his shirt and shoes were off. They examined his chest, and the 2 beings were having some kind of a discussion between themselves. Bud Hopkins, because they cut back to him, he then starts talking about how these abductions are very similar. The figures are little, between 3 to 5 feet tall, slender, very large craniums, eyes are very black, mouth is just a slit. It very much harkened back to the Allagash abductions case. These cases are all very similar, which again adds to the validity. In the
Allagash abductions case, they experienced missing time as well.
Right, exactly.
Missing time to me makes sense in a scientific way as well, because if these aliens are abducting people and they're taking them, who knows how far out of our galaxy. Time is probably going to go by a lot faster.
Or they they can just take their time diddling the person, and they can just do it at their leisure because the person's under their control.
Too. Exactly.
So then the segment cuts to a support group of people who have gone through abductions, and it focuses on this lady named Christina Florence in particular, who is hot. She's very attractive. It says, the Mojave Desert, 1974. Christina Florence was 17 years old as her family was crossing to Barstow. Their car had overheated, and their mother pulled off to the side of the road. The mom left to go get water. Quote, where she was going, I don't know, but she said stay in the car. My sister got out of the car, and I heard her run around the back, and she said, oh my God, come out here quick. And the next thing I remembered consciously was that we were laying on this blanket in this park as if we had taken a nap. And then the next thing I remember were the 3 of us just driving like hell. We never talked about it till my sister just called me up the other day, and we started talking about further, and we realized that we both had this missing time experience.
Yeah, I remember that. It was just so surreal.
Yeah, and she knew Bud, so I contacted Bud. I wasn't interested in UFOs. I wasn't interested in meeting some guy who did UFO research, but she did eventually go into hypnosis. Now, I think that those chain of memories is the most bizarre thing. They go behind the sisters. I just think about this myself. If I was in this position, I'm in this car with my brother. My brother gets out of the car. I'm a little kid, so it's a lot easier to freak me out. he goes, "Oh my God, look at this." And then I just go out, and the segment was so scary how they did it, because again, it's what they didn't show. They did not show a CGI spacecraft
exactly.
there. They didn't show anything. They just showed the girl getting out of the car, putting her hand over her eyes to shield the sun, and then it just does this white washout thing, and then in the next scene, they're laying on this blanket in this park.
It was like something out of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, and then the very next scene, it shows the car just hauling ass, like almost as if something happened and they just were trying to get the fuck out of there, but nobody remembers what. It's a very creepy chain of events how she remembered it like that. Quoting her now, "Under hypnosis, I started having this picture that my sister is getting out of the car, and I got out of the car, and I looked up, and there was something above the car, and I was so scared I didn't know what it was, so I ran back to the car, and she ran back, and she crunched herself under the dashboard, and I was trying to start the car, and it wouldn't start. The next memory I had was being on a table, and there were people around. There was this screen about as large as a big screen television, but it was paper thin, and it wasn't attached to anything. And I could see three-dimensional images of my skull and my whole body. And it was just this huge spherical room that was just covered in dials. And I felt like they put these rubber pants on me or something, and they had left the room, and I was asking for my sister, and somebody communicated to me, and I'm assuming this is all telepathic communication. They communicated to me that she was okay. Then all the dials in the room started to spin, and then before we knew it, we were back on the blanket in the park." She says, "I live a perfectly normal life. I'm not crazy. There's definitely something going on, and what it is, I don't know. I could be having a dream, and maybe everybody else is having the same dream," referring to all the people in her support group. "But I know I'm not lying."
Yeah, that's pretty... I don't know, that's not very likely that everyone's going to have the exact same... Especially her and her... friends that were there, her family members that were there with her. I mean, they haven't come forward to try to go to the group, but they probably did have the same experience.
So then it cuts to Hopkins, and he's like, "The question is raised, why are the abductors here?" Bud Hopkins postulates that ultimately is for reproductive purposes. Sperm and ova samples are usually collected in these abductions. The whole central focus of the abduction tends to center around some kind of genetic experiment. And then it shows the lady who is a psychologist who takes on a lot of these patients who have gone through this experience. And she's saying there's incredibly high incidences of gynecological and physiological history of symptoms that just do not appear in the rest of the population with these victims who have been abducted. She says, "Every time I meet one of these people in their history, there is almost always ovarian cancer at a very young age, ovarian cyst that burst in the ovary was removed, or some kind of strange thing with twisted fallopian tubes, all kinds of weird, bizarre things that just don't happen." Then it's going back to quoting Christina Florence again. She says, quote, "A lot of us have had miscarriages after 3 months of pregnancy. We've had false pregnancies. There were abortions that were done where there was nothing actually found." Now that's fucking creepy right there.
Yes, that is
an
very
abortion
creepy.
where nothing was found. What is that all about? That's like literally the alien injected them with some kind of a spermacological sample of some kind. I don't know if spermacological is a word. Could have just made it up, but. But, they were injected with some kind of semen, and they carried something to some kind of term, but it just, because it was another species, they weren't able to have the whatever it was.
Or the aliens came back and they took the whatever it was out of them.
That's true. That's a possibility. Didn't think about that. It's interviewing Bud again. The numbers of cases, the physical marks, the emotion involved in the cases, the consistency of the accounts. The weight of the evidence is so powerful now that if I wished for the luxury of disbelief, it's not possible for me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunate. It would be, in a certain sense, nice. Life would be a lot simpler if this would just go away.
Yeah, I mean, especially for the people who have experienced it firsthand. I mean, those women that are experiencing all these symptoms, and I mean, it's not only manifesting itself physically, but it's also manifesting itself psychologically. It's causing physical and psychological damage.
Oh, it's a form of rape, It's they would probably go through similar feelings of violation as a rape victim would, you know? I mean, it's against your will, and they were violated, you know? So, I mean, it's bad. And then on top of that, nobody fucking
people don't believe
believes you. Yeah, they don't believe them. And how, you know, and the most pro-women person out there, you could be a victim of something like this and go for support, and you still might not be believed. You know, like, oh, you're saying you got abducted and this and that happened. It's like, yeah, okay. So I mean,
you're nuts.
Yeah. So Bud finishes with saying, if scientists were doing what they were supposed to do, they should be working on this, and it shouldn't be left to people like myself. An extraordinary phenomenon like this demands an extraordinary investigation, but the science community has sat on the sidelines this entire time. So, yeah, that's the case of Missing Time, and you know, I just the reenactments were fantastic. Bob Stack's narration was great in this particular episode. Christina Florence's story actually sends chills down my spine whenever I think about it. You know, getting out of the car and just seeing something, but they don't actually show what it is, and then they're in the park, and then they're driving like hell, and then the wording, and it was like a symphony of just perfection. This segment to me, it was just like perfect narration, perfect segments, perfect wording, perfect writing. It's like a conductor was just waving his hands and all this like perfect, you know, what for me personally makes a perfect Unsolved Mysteries segment. This one would be up there for sure, but not nearly as perfect as the Allagash abductions.
Yeah, see, I mean, I like it, but well, I would probably say I loved it, but I do like the segment.
The Allagash had those illustrations and those narrations under hypnosis of all four of the guys, and the drawings were just fantastic, and the music and the whole climax of that segment is probably one of the best in Unsolved Mysteries history as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I mean, it's like everything else. It's the credibility of the witnesses that really makes me believe this story. It's the detail. It's the, you know, how fucking normal they seem. I love this case. It's been proven time and time again that missing time is a component of abduction. So yeah, I mean, it's awesome that they took the time to explain this one part of an abduction. But yeah. But yeah, that's all the time we have for today. I've got to run and go and do something here, so the time has caught up with me. You can find me personally on Facebook, Josh Cannon. It's youtube.com/dancingwithghosts. I do vlogs and video game stuff and just all kinds of entertaining videos and stuff. You can find Mike on YouTube. youtube.com/OCP Communications. He does a lot of movie reviews and fun stuff like that. He just did a big unboxing, and that's another thing. I think we got somebody sending us something. Mike, I'm not going to say his last name because he didn't, you know, whatever. He doesn't know I'm going to be mentioning him, but he apparently wanted to send us something, so that's cool. If you want to do that, I guess message us and we'll tell you how you can do that, because we really don't know how you can do that yet, because there's two of us in different locations. It's kind of
going to have to send it separately.
Yeah, separately, or to whichever one of us you feel you want to have it more, I guess. I don't know. And now the competition starts. We got to start campaigning. But anyway, I'm Josh Cannon. This is Mike. That's all we have for this week. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you for listening, and have a happy Thanksgiving, and
oh yeah, tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Don't eat too much. When you eat to the point to where you feel like it's like you have trouble breathing because you're so full, the doctors say that you're 5 times more likely to have a heart attack in that instance. So with that being said, don't overstuff yourself.
Yeah, don't do that. It's a bad idea. So anyway, thanks for listening, and I guess we will see you later. See ya.